Good day, folks. This is John Scarborough out here with the sheep this morning. Come out here to check on them. We're doing a little bit of cleanup on some lease land. Wanted to show you all these little bushes we've got here. I don't really know what these bushes are called. There's some of them right there along the fence growing. They almost look like an autumn olive, but I don't know for sure. I've never actually seen an autumn olive up close. So I don't know for sure, and I don't know what this is called, but I know we have a lot of it, and I know it's very invasive. It's also an evergreen, so if anybody knows what that is, I would appreciate it if y'all would put that in the comments. But anyway, this is an evergreen bush that cows will eat a little bit of, but not very much. But sheep will absolutely love them. Sheep and goats will just destroy them. They will definitely keep them at bay. So like for us, anywhere we have net wire fences, it's always a problem because they will just grow up through those net wire fences. I want y'all to look here for just a minute. We've got two sheep over here that are just standoffish. Both of them, they don't want to get anywhere close because they're nervous about me being here. The rest of them are just putting their heads down and eating. And if they're anything like cows, then that's usually ended up being a problem. But if there's a sheep person out there that knows, let me know what you think about that. They're all sheep, you know, so they all jump at the wrong thing. But I've noticed is that spotted one with a little bit of hair on its neck, that's the one that always makes them all jump. I do know with goats, with raising goats, there's always a head girl. There's always a head. One of the female goats is always the head. They're the ones that tells everybody what to do. So it may be the same with sheep. But it is kind of funny. That ram, he's sure doing his work over here. He's doing what he's supposed to do. So I'm happy about that. The ram, he'll actually let me pet him. I'll walk up and pet him. But the rest of them are just a little bit standoffish. So, but I do think it's funny because there's always the one or two that is more jumpy than the rest of them. I'm gonna get back to this and show you all these here bushes. We'll try to get up close. So this is always a problem because they grow up. There's so many small pieces that grow up in there, and they'll grow up all through this net wire fence. And so it's when it comes to net wire, it's not really a good thing. And it's kind of interesting because this place had goats on it for many years. And then the lady stopped being able to run goats on it, so she leased it to somebody with cows. As soon as she leased it with cows, this whole fence right here, that whole fence, all the fences grew up, and all of that stuff just grew up everywhere. And you can see where it's been cleaned up. But all of this, and then all of this around this tree just all grew up like crazy, just exploded, because those goats weren't there to clean that up anymore. It's just crazy to me because it's like if you have a place that you have the ability to put goats or sheep on there, put them on there. That is the one thing I can say for sure. Even if you're not going to make any money on them, put those goats and sheep on there. But what I wanted to say here, guys, is these are an evergreen. So I actually waited until after all the leaves start falling and there's less forage here. And I could have waited until deep winter, but I went ahead and did it now. I waited until later. That's something I always like to do when I'm cleaning up land. I like to wait until, partially, I like to wait until it's cool. It's not so hot that it's hard to work, you know. We get really humid here, but part of it, if I'm doing stuff for sheep or goats or something, part of it is because of this right here, because I'm feeding them. As soon as I started dropping those things, they all started piling in around me and just eating up every bit of that. They knew what I was doing. They saw them things dropping down. They're used to watching each other. If one of them will pull, if one of them puts their feet up on there, their hooves, and pull a limb down, they hear that limb fall. They're used to hearing that sound of a bush or something coming down, and that means there's food down low. Somebody got food low. So when you cut brush like that, they'll all come up piling around you and just start eating that. That's why I waited on that, because I wanted to wait and actually be able to feed them. They're getting a lot more good out of this. If I would have done it in the dead of summer or spring or something, it'd have been a lot more forage. They would have eaten it, but they would have wasted part of it. You know, and it's not waste. You know what I'm saying, but they're actually getting some good forage out of this. So that's kind of nice. Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to touch on that. There's still some more back in here that needs to get cleaned up. Y'all can tell where this big sweet gum, this is a big old sweet gum, probably 42 inches or so at the bottom there. I don't know if you can see it real well there. Big old sweet gum. I mean, at the very bottom, you know, you're probably more like 50 inches. But where your saw log would start, you'd get 40 inches. Of course, a sweet gum doesn't make a good saw log, but just using that as an example. But you can see where all these limbs came down and hit this corner. We're still okay for raising sheep. You know, we don't have to worry about them getting out right there. But for a long time, it was actually quite dangerous. So that's the reason I didn't get back here and clean it up. I did what I could, but there was several big limbs that was up in that, hanging on that tree, and it was a really dangerous spot. So I had to leave it alone for a while. But now that it's been sitting here for a while, I can finally get back in here safely and clean all of this up. So that's what we're going to start doing. I just wanted to show you all these sheep. If anybody looks, you know, sees this bush or whatever, and y'all know what this is, let me know, because there's goods and there's bads to this bush right here. The obvious plus is being something that you can feed goats and sheep to. You know, it's a really good food source, and it's abundant. The negative, a big negative, is if you don't have goats or sheep or something, it is very invasive. It will absolutely take over an area that you don't have a brush hog to keep it knocked down. So I don't know for sure what it is, but it is very invasive. One good thing about it being invasive is it will grow up around creeks, and I have found that it has a better shot at holding that creek together than a big tree does. A lot better shot at it. So that is a plus, is it can grow up beside, inside of the creek, all up through the creek, and actually help hold that creek together. I still think you'd be better with some grazing animals to keep some of that knocked down. If you can combine that with some with a grassy bank, you're going to be a lot better off. But I just think it's interesting that there are certain plants out there that we don't really use that can actually be used strategically, something we've used quite a bit, that has done some interesting things. But without goats and sheep, without those browsers, we're unable to get the best benefits of all of that. Look at this dog, guys. She is just absolutely loving that sun. Hey, pup. She likes to ride with me. I come over here to the lease properties or something, she'll just jump right in that truck and come ride around with me. Gotten to where I really like that truck. I didn't first bought it, we bought it as a delivery truck, and now I'm driving around with it everywhere. So you can tell I got it all loaded with logs. Pretty good truck though. But man, I tell you what, these sheep are just low maintenance animals. Everybody I talk to, they got something bad to say about sheep. People's got a bad taste in their mouth for sheep, and I do know why. But I tell you, all the people that I see that are struggling with sheep, if they have the sheep and they're struggling with them, they've all got them in the same places. They're not moving them. The parasites are terrible for them, you know. So I don't like that. And I think that's the biggest problem, because we move our animals. We keep our animals moved. We keep them on clean pastures. And y'all know that we're not moving these sheep as much as we'd like to, because we're still on this little 5-acre place. But man, I tell you, if you could find a way to get into sheep, I think sheep would be the answer. I really do. I think so many people could do so well, feed their families, and just do very well raising sheep. Another thing I like about sheep is we don't have to worry about acorns. We have so many lease properties with big oak trees, like these trees right here. Multiple big oak trees that are deeply rooted and produce tons of acorns. And those acorns, they just absolutely explode every single year. And for cattle, it's a problem, because we have so many lease properties with that. And I got to tell you, we fence them out of everything we can, but it is difficult to fence them out of 100% of the acorns. And we preach that. We always preach fencing them out as much of the acorns as we can. we preach that. And because, you know, it's toxic for the cattle, but it's not toxic for them. When they go to an acorn, they gain weight. They actually put on calories, and there is a lot of calories in an acorn. There are carbs and fat in those acorns, and they're putting on lots of calories for the winter, okay? So that's another wonderful thing about them, is not only will they clean up the acorns in front of the cattle. Like if you could put sheep and goats together on a place, normally I would say run the sheep behind the cattle, but when it comes to the acorns in the fall, I'd start putting my sheep in front. I'd put them out in front, and I'd start putting them tight around those acorn trees because they're putting on weight like that. But that's just another wonderful thing about sheep. And here's another wonderful thing. Look at this lamb right here. This right here, well, it's actually a ram lamb, but that ram lamb was born earlier this year, just a little bit ago, and it is already almost full size. I can barely tell the difference in them, you know. So that's another awesome thing about sheep, is that they just absolutely they grow up quick, and a lot of times you get twins, you know. So there's a lot of reason to raise sheep. It's a wonderful thing to me. But that acorn thing, that's a big one for me, because we, so far, crossing my fingers, we haven't had a lot of trouble at acorns, but I've been diligent with it. But it's always a pain. It is always a pain in the fall. So, but anyway, guys, I'm gonna get off that soapbox on that one. I just wanted to give y'all a little video on the sheep. The ram is seeming to be doing his job. He's looking good. He's starting to finally get that hair across his chest. That's kind of the St. Croix, you know, the signature St. Croix thing. When those St. Croix rams, they'll start to grow almost like a mane in that chest. So that's a good thing. These I'm going to be glad to get that cross in there. So, but anyway, I did want to mention, guys, real quick, and I'm about to wrap this video up, but if anybody knows someone that is selling some ewe lambs, I'm actually in the market. I'm looking for Katahdin ewe lambs. I would also be looking for some St. Croix ewe lambs, but I'm really in the market for the Katahdin ewe lambs. I don't really want the Dorper. I've got some Dorper cross in these, I think. But I'm not looking for that Dorper cross. I'm really looking for some Katahdin or St. Croix lambs, or ewes is what I'm really looking for. But I'm fine with getting the younger lambs. We've got enough ground to cover them, and I really would like to get some more of them. So if anybody has that, or they've got some or something like that, especially if you live near me, let me know. You know, but just put it in the comments, and I'll get in contact with you for sure on that. But anyway, guys, as always, I'm going to sign off. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if y'all got any questions, put it in the comments. I can make a video on it, or I can answer it a lot. I do try to answer all of my comments, but I don't always get a chance to do that. So, all right, guys, I'm going to sign off.